Good evening, everyone. My name is Phil from Nigeria, and currently I am a fellow here at Rondine. I am honored to introduce this evening's event on behalf of the young people of Rondine from all over the world. First of all, I would like to thank Your Excellencies and distinguished guests for joining this meeting and to thank Rondine for this amazing opportunity. Today is a significant day for humanity as we all observe the International Day of Human Rights. The theme of this year's celebration, as chosen by the United Nations, is Recover Better, Stand Up for Human Rights. This year's Human Rights Day theme relates to the present COVID-19 pandemic and focuses on the need to build back better by ensuring human rights are central to recovery efforts. This is very so apparent as there have been records of human rights violation during this period, including censorship, discrimination, arbitrary detention, and xenophobia from different parts of the world. One example among many is the increase in gender-based violence, sexual harassment, and other forms of violence against women since the start of the pandemic. And a few weeks ago, the world celebrated the International Day of Violence Against Women. This raises the question, are we still human in difficult times such as this? This also shows that we do not have to wait every year for a time like this to preach and to promote human rights. Eleanor Roosevelt famously said, "Where, after all, do universal human rights begin? In small places close to home, so close and so small that they cannot be seen on any map of the world." For the past year and a half, Rondine has been that place for me. Rondine is a free space for all and a place where leaders are groomed. Gender, class, race, ethnicity, and religion, and so on do not play a significant role here. Here in Rondine, our diversity is our strength. And we hope that with our method and message, the world will view diversity more as an opportunity rather than as a challenge. Rondine, in its efforts of over 20 years, has taken a step further with its Leaders for Peace campaign. Rondine, since its inception, has been built on the belief in young people as catalysts for positive change, promotion, and maintenance of human rights. Because of this belief, around 200 people from conflict and post-conflict areas, such as myself, decided to use our knowledge, experience, and diversity to develop and launch our Leaders for Peace campaign at the 70th anniversary of the Universal Declaration of Human Rights in the headquarters of the United Nations in New York. The objective is the gradual extinction of war context from the world through the affirmation of a new culture that unmasks the false concept of the enemy, producing immense benefit and spreading among its citizens the skills to positively transform conflicts, integrating the teaching of the Rondine method with human rights. With this Leaders for Peace campaign, we asked the 193 members of the United Nations states and other nations, social, religious, economic entities, families, and private individuals to provide training for peace leaders, integrate the teaching of human rights in national education system, symbolically devote some resources from the defense budget to the training of young leaders for peace. That's what our colleagues asked before us, and that's what we are asking all United Nations member states today. I would love to end by quoting Bishop Desmond Tutu, who said, "If you're neutral in situations of injustice, you have chosen the side of the oppressor." All of us have a role to play at work, in the streets, in our daily lives. We must understand that we are all part of this global community and that each step and action we take can help usher in the world which we desire. Stand up for human rights. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Phil. I'm Valeria Robecco, and I am a journalist and the president of the United Nations Correspondent Association. Good morning, everyone, and thank you to be here. On December 10th, the historic anniversary of the Universal Declaration of Human Rights, and exactly 2 years after the launch of the Global Leaders for Peace campaign at the United Nations in New York, Rondine Cittadella della Pace makes again its method and the activism of its young people available to the youth-led peace building at the service of conflicts, especially those the pandemic seems to have dangerously brought back to the international scene to be diffused. With the Leaders for Peace campaign, Rondine calls each of the 193 member states of the United Nations to provide training for new global peace leaders and to extend the human rights education in their educational system, integrating them with the results of the Rondine method. And for those countries that will be available to do so, to dedicate a symbolic contribution from their defense budget to directly provide for the training of these new peace leaders, individuals capable of promoting peaceful policies and the development of pacified social relations. Following 2 international events held at the UN in 2018 and 2019, and numerous other events and initiatives, the campaign gained the moral support of the President of the Italian Republic, Sergio Mattarella, Pope Francis, the formal commitment of Italy's Prime Minister Giuseppe Conte, the Republic of Costa Rica, the presidency of the European Economic and Social Committee, major and cities. The COVID-19 pandemic seems to have exacerbated the risk that many of the social and peace progresses reached globally in the recent years to be called into question. An arduous challenge that opens the 3rd and final years of the Leaders for Peace campaign by directly addressing the fear of sudden changes in growth and geopolitical scenarios and the emergence of new hostilities. During today's event, held remote due to the COVID-19, we will hear from students and alumni of Rondine that will involve national and international authorities, diplomats, young activists, intellectuals from important universities from around the world, and in an online dialogue to understand how to immediately strengthen through the values of the Leaders for Peace campaign and a common peace effort, the post-pandemic tomorrow, free of further social and armed conflict. So let's get started now, and I have the honor to introduce Her Excellency Ambassador Mariangela Zappia, permanent representative of Italy to the United Nations. Ambassador, nice to see you, and the floor is yours.
Thank you so much, Valeria, and of course, my thanks to Rondine, to friends Franco Vaccari, President of Rondine. It is a really great pleasure for me to be, part of this celebration of this day of reflection and this important conversation in an important day. The 10th of December is indeed a day that we want to remember, and we want to be very active in this day. We are not just remembering a date, but we renew on this day our commitment to human rights. And I'm really honored and feel privileged that Rondine is inviting me to kickstart this conversation today. 2 years ago, as Valeria just reminded us, I had the pleasure with President Vaccari to present the campaign Leaders for Peace at the United Nations in a very beautiful and emotional ceremony that we had there together with the international students of Rondine. Today we live in a different world. Our lives have been disrupted completely. The pandemic is not only preventing us from meeting and being together, for instance, today, it's changing our habits, reshaping our relations with others. It has magnified inequalities, making us realize how indeed fragmented and at the same time interconnected our societies are. And yet, in a world that has profoundly changed, I believe that Rondine's message and its idea of leadership is even more relevant today. a leadership for peace, built on responsibility, on care, and centered on young people as engine of change. We need this kind of leadership to overcome the crisis and become better prepared for future shocks. On that, one that is accountable and cares about the well-being of present and future generations. And here, of course, young people have a huge role to play. Rondine's calls for peace, for leaders for peace, is even more meaningful today at the time than at the time of this launch. We have seen conflict reigniting during these months, sometimes exacerbated by the pandemic. A global ceasefire called by the Secretary General very early on in the crisis is urgently needed to unite all efforts in the fight against the virus, because the virus is the enemy, the only real enemy that really is challenging all of us. But countries seem not to understand that, and conflicts are ongoing and even more. Multilateralism and international cooperation have a central role to play, with an approach that must involve all stakeholders: institutions, local authorities, civil society, the private sector, science and research, and of course the youth. The international community has proved capable of building operational platforms of cooperation to give a coordinated response to the emergency. We must move in this direction to reform the United Nations and the multilateral system and make it more effective and relevant to the people it serves. Italy, together with Europe, has been among the first to advocate, for instance, for a global alliance for a COVID-19 vaccine. Now its universal and equitable distribution is the priority. And the Global Health Summit that Italy will organize with the European Commission in 2021, in May 2021, will build momentum toward this goal. And I have to say, this will be one of the objectives, the main objective also of our G20 presidency in 2021. So it's not only about having the vaccine, which hopefully we have, and many, but the real problem will be to produce it, to deploy it, to distribute it everywhere. And this is really where we need to increase our international cooperation. The emergency is not over, but we cannot delay action on recovery. And responsibility and care should guide this endeavor, placing the human being at the core of a new ethic, if I may say, and a model of production and consumption. The health of people and the planet are global public goods. These existential goals will drive Italy actions during the G20 presidency, keeping in mind that inclusion, first and foremost, of women and youth is key. We are working relentlessly to engage all players in our commitment to climate neutrality and the green transition. Well before the pandemic, young people have taken to the street to advocate urgent measures for climate action and protection of biodiversity. As co-host of COP26, Italy is determined to bring their voice, the voice of the young people, to the decision-making table. And we will thus host a Youth for Climate event next September in Milan, back-to-back with the pre-COP26. And I'm here inviting really Rondine and the young people of Rondine to participate in this important event. We have also very clear in mind that a sustainable future is one where inequalities are redressed. No one should be left behind. Solidarity is not only a moral imperative, is the enlightened self-interest of all the countries, of all of us, because we are all interdependent, as we have learned so clearly. In this spirit, the issue of debt sustainability, for instance, for the most vulnerable countries, will remain central to the work of the G20. And we are engaging all actors to find innovative tools and sustainable solutions also to these issues. As Rondine students know well, what really matters to build the future of peace is how we interact with others and the environment. If we care, if we feel deeply about the responsibility of our actions, we can be drivers of change. You can be drivers of change and caretakers of the planet. We must work together. In its many years of activity, Rondine has embodied these principles, encouraging young people to put the determination and the vision at the service of peace and become the main actors of a transformative agenda. This is really extremely important. So with that, Franco, President, you are really, you have a very important mission with Rondine. I'm very happy that the young people in Rondine are becoming more and more numerous because we need your message to really resonate also here in New York again, and hopefully next year in person. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Ambassador, for your words. And now it's my pleasure to introduce Her Excellency Ambassador Maritza Chan, Deputy Permanent Representative of Costa Rica to the United Nations. Please, Ambassador, go ahead.
Thank you very much, Excellencies, dear friends. On behalf of the government of Costa Rica, it is my honor to join this important dialogue on the anniversary of the Universal Declaration of Human Rights. On this day, we recall the preamble of the Universal Declaration, which establishes that the foundation of freedom, justice, and peace in the world is none other than the inherent dignity and of the equal and inalienable rights of all members of the human family. Rooted in a culture of dialogue, cooperation, and consensus building, Costa Rica emerged from a civil war days before the adoption of the Human Rights Declaration in 1948. To abolish its military and redirect natural resources to education, health, and the environmental protection. Since then, Costa Rica has proven that it's possible to become strong without being armed, that it's possible to provide human welfare without being rich, and that it's possible to be a standard bearer of international law and human rights without the resources of an outsized diplomatic corps. We have also learned that security does not come from multiplying weapons. History has already proven this too many times. Security comes from remedying injustice, easing shortages, bridging gaps, and creating opportunities so we can have collective prosperity on par with collective security. We have learned that there cannot be long-term security or sustained peace without human security. We have also learned that the plurality of voices and individualities, our most precious asset, need to have a space in all decisions that affect their lives. For all the reasons, we were naturally inclined to support and sign the Leaders for Peace International Campaign on Peace, Youth, and Human Rights. We fully commute with the world and principles that guide Rondine, Ciudad de Paz, City of Peace. This generation of youth is the largest in human history. Costa Rica recognizes the need for our political and social leadership to get younger, diverse, sensitive, and responsible to the potential and capabilities of these and other generations, mainly because you are now facing a unique constellation of obstacles and limitations from pandemics, violence, poverty, inequality, displacement to climate change. The challenge is colossal and the stakes are high. Our guiding path should be to give everyone, everywhere, the opportunities to develop their full potential. Opportunities to our women and girls in all their diversity. It is time to stop talking about them as victims and recognize their transformative role by placing them at the center of our public policies. It is time to ensure their effective equality, as well as their full and significant participation in the construction of just, peaceful, inclusive, sustainable, and decarbonized societies. Effective equality between women and men should be a priority in all nations of the world. Nowadays, we're now facing the major global crisis, COVID-19, whose causes and effects resonate and question us about the type of societies we have nurtured and the type of societies that we want. In such context, part of our responsibility is personal. To our youth, it is about listening rather than assuming, mentoring rather than bossing, accompanying rather than giving advice. We need to listen better, ask better questions, form meaningful collaborations that allow younger people to test their skills in respectful, accessible environments. If we want you to learn what we have to teach you and translate that into policies and practices that will help solve the problems that we failed to solve ourselves. Many of these problems, as you know, are in the peace and security realm. I encourage you to speak up in a strong, clear, and resolute manner, and to continue to be committed to the greatness of your aspirations which include the decisive fight for the environment and the protection of the unique house, the use of human and economic resources to produce social welfare, not to build weapons and make wars, the equality of all, women and men in all their diversity. No country is immune to the pandemic, nor to the multiple challenges that our societies and political systems face. This is when the youth have to speak up, but also not to forget your history, as the encyclical letter Fratelli Tutti of Pope Francis says, where he tells us how the blessed Carlos IV wanted to become the brother of all. Yet, only by identifying with the least did he become at last to be the brother or sister of all. As regards to us who occupy decision-making positions, we haven't set a good table for you. But we cannot replicate the many mistakes that were made with us. Ready or not, it is your turn now. Speak up. I thank you.
Thank you so much for your word, Ambassador. And now please welcome Mr. Franco Vaccari, founder and president of Rondine Cittadella della Pace, that introduced the topic to care for relationship, a global responsibility. Please, Mr. President, you have the floor.
Abbiamo delle decisionali. Pronto? Mi si sente?
Sì,
Bene, scusate, problemi tecnici di connessione. Buonasera a tutti e un grande grazie a tutti per aver partecipato a questo incontro. Ovviamente grazie a Valeria Rebecca per questo servizio prezioso di moderazione. Un saluto affettuoso all'amica, l'ambasciatrice Mariangela Zappia, con cui condividiamo passo dopo passo l'avanzare della campagna fin dall'inizio, e un grazie particolare all'ambasciatrice Maritza Chan, perché aver avuto la firma del Costa Rica dopo la firma del presidente Conte è di grande significato e ben augurante per il proseguo della campagna. Ci sono troppi valori comuni e il Costa Rica è un esempio a cui noi facciamo riferimento con i nostri giovani e che dichiara che è possibile fare cose che altrove invece vengono ancora dichiarate impossibili. Ma Rondine lavora sempre al confine con l'utopia e quindi ogni giorno, se mi passate tutti l'espressione, rosicchia qualche centimetro quadrato al piano che sembra infinito dell'utopia, per portarlo nella realtà, nel possibile. Oggi grazie perché tutti siamo qua, chi ha già parlato e chi interverrà dopo, autorevolissimi ospiti, perché vogliamo essere gli adulti che danno una spinta e un sostegno ai giovani e alle donne.
Un secondo per la traduzione, Presidente.
Ormai è abbastanza chiaro che se c'è una speranza nel futuro è una nuova leadership di giovani e di donne. Noi dobbiamo vedere una vera leadership estesa al femminile, perché ormai 2 o 3 millenni di leadership maschile hanno già fatto vedere sicuramente tanti progressi, ma in questo anche tante battute d'arresto.
Presidente, un secondo per la traduzione.
Da dove cominciano i diritti umani? A Rondine abbiamo trovato una risposta dalle nostre relazioni, dalle relazioni che ciascuno ha. In Italia, purtroppo, come in altre parti del mondo, abbiamo visto che la pandemia ha fatto aumentare i femminicidi. È uno degli elementi, uno dei tante cifre della tragedia. Le relazioni ammalate, magari nel silenzio delle case, che attraverso questa pandemia si ammalano ancora di più. Quando sarà finita la parte medica e biologica del coronavirus, ci troveremo l'emergere di tutto il lato oscuro del coronavirus, quello che oggi non vediamo, ed è la ferita sociale, la ferita a tutte le nostre relazioni. Allora noi che siamo qua per vedere la sostenibilità del futuro, dobbiamo forse fare una sorta di rinnovato patto per costruire una cultura nuova delle relazioni. Non si può andare a affermare pace quando nelle relazioni concrete che costruiamo non costruiamo pace. Non possiamo dire qualche cosa che è non coerente con quello che cerchiamo di fare. I giovani di Rondine hanno imparato una cosa: ciascuno di noi può fare solo il proprio passo. Possiamo sognare grande, ma per andare verso il sogno dobbiamo fare un passo possibile. Se troviamo alleanze come oggi segnala il nostro incontro, penso che il passo può essere ancora più forte e ancora più grande. Dove iniziano i diritti umani? Iniziano nelle nostre relazioni. 10 anni fa, quando andai a presentare il metodo Rondine a una scuola di ragazzini, non sapevo come spiegarglielo. E allora gli inventai un mimo. Dico, fate con me. E gli feci il mimo di un infermiere che sega una fiala, la spezza, prende il liquido e fa una puntura. E introdussi così i giovani di Rondine. Questi giovani hanno fatto un vaccino contro la guerra, contro la violenza. Erano 10 anni fa. Devo dire che oggi quella trovata che ebbi così per raccontare a dei bambini il metodo Rondine, credo che diventi comprensibile universalmente. Abbiamo trovato a tempo di record la possibilità di un vaccino per la pandemia. Credo che dobbiamo impegnare le nostre energie per trovare un vaccino che sta nell'education, che sta nella formazione, che sta nella formazione ad ogni livello, un vaccino contro la violenza e contro la guerra. Questo vaccino lo possiamo costruire insieme meglio. L'esperienza di Rondine è a disposizione di tutti. I giovani coraggiosi che vengono a Rondine, si vaccinano e tornano ai loro paesi per cambiare mentalità hanno bisogno di alleati. Credo che nel panel di oggi noi troviamo sicuramente degli alleati antichi e dei nuovi alleati per sostenere il coraggio di questi giovani. Grazie.
Thank you for your word, for your important word, Mr. President. I think now we have like a brief translation for the English public. Okay, sorry, no, we go ahead. So now we'll hear a video message by Dr. Enrico Letta, Dean of the Paris School of International Affairs, Sciences Po, and former Prime Minister of Italy. Please listen.
Carissimi giovani amici di Rondine, se oggi si dovesse
Dear young people and dear friends of Rondine, if today you asked me, how can responsibility and leadership turn you and many others like you into the heart of tomorrow's society, the beating, positive, and inclusive heart of tomorrow's society, I'd answer without any doubt, education. But by education, I mean something different from this word's traditional meaning. I don't mean just conveying information. You can find information anywhere. We probably even have too much of it. The issue is how to disentangle this information, how to find a constant compass anchored to the values of civil coexistence, the value of mutual respect, anchored to our society's need for responsible leaders and the need to be forward-looking. So, education and compass. A compass with cardinal points that only the encounter with others can provide. In this sense, your current experiences, working together, understanding each other, and exchanging experiences becomes fundamental. Never lose this spark, this curiosity, even in a time when, unfortunately, we can only meet online. The time will come when we're able to meet again in person. That time will push you to put into practice everything you're learning. Thank you and good luck.
Thank you so much to Dr. Nicoletta. And now let me introduce another segment, which is Leaders for Peace, Responsibility and Care, where we will hear thoughts and wishes towards a better 2021. Let's start with the video message by Luigi Di Maio, Italy's Minister of Foreign Affairs and International Cooperation.
Salve a tutti. Oggi è la Giornata Internazionale dei Diritti Umani. Sono molto lieto di poterla celebrare assieme a Rondine, cui rinnovo l'apprezzamento del Ministero degli Esteri e della Cooperazione Internazionale e il sostegno per le meritorie iniziative come Leaders for Peace e la Global Leaders School. L'attività e il metodo di Rondine si fondano sulla promozione della pace e del dialogo tra individui di culture, fedi e origini diverse. Si tratta degli stessi principi che da sempre ispirano l'azione della Farnesina per la salvaguardia universale dei diritti umani e nella generale condotta della politica estera italiana. Ad accomunarci è anche l'attenzione per il ruolo dei giovani. Sentiamo e condividiamo l'esigenza di convogliare l'entusiasmo nell'esercizio delle relazioni tra Stati e di valorizzarne la nobile spinta ideale verso soluzioni pacifiche dei conflitti. Le generazioni presenti hanno il dovere di adoperare al meglio questo straordinario capitale umano e fare di più per il suo futuro. Il 42% della popolazione mondiale ha infatti meno di 25 anni, con percentuali persino superiori nei paesi in via di sviluppo. L'importanza decisiva dei giovani è già da tempo riconosciuta dalle Nazioni Unite. Ne sono testimonianze la ricorrenza del 5° anniversario della risoluzione del Consiglio di sicurezza su giovani, pace e sicurezza e la presenza qui con noi oggi dell'inviata speciale del segretario generale delle Nazioni Unite per i giovani, con cui l'Italia collabora da anni. Eravamo infatti al fianco della Rondine quando il 10 dicembre del 2018, in occasione del 70° anniversario della Dichiarazione Universale dei Diritti dell'Uomo, i giovani della Cittadella della Pace hanno lanciato proprio a New York l'appello Leaders for Peace e poi ancora un anno dopo, quando è stata presentata la Global Leaders School. Dalla sede principale delle Nazioni Unite che simboleggia la pace tra le nazioni, Rondine ha potuto così diffondere il suo messaggio di speranza e presentare al mondo il suo metodo di prevenzione dei conflitti che parte dalla formazione umana, prima ancora che professionale, di una nuova classe di leader. È nell'educazione, all'empatia e alla condivisione delle esperienze tra giovani di comunità diverse, spesso antagoniste, che si forgiano ambasciatori di pace, preparati a superare i filtri delle differenze culturali e dei condizionamenti ambientali. In un momento particolarmente complicato come quello che stiamo vivendo, è con grande fiducia che guardiamo a voi giovani, al vostro ottimismo, al vostro coraggio e alle vostre capacità di immaginare e dare forma a un futuro all'altezza dei vostri sogni e delle vostre ambizioni. Ma è anche la responsabilità condivisa delle istituzioni, nazionali e sovranazionali, dare ai giovani gli strumenti per poter contribuire alla costruzione e alla ricostruzione, dopo i conflitti e dopo la pandemia, di società più resilienti e pronte ad affrontare le sfide che le attendono senza sacrificare la convivenza pacifica tra culture e religioni diverse. Posso assicurare che il governo italiano e in particolare il Ministero degli Affari Esteri e della Cooperazione Internazionale continueranno ad impegnarsi a fondo per dare ai giovani lo spazio che meritano come alfieri di pace e giustizia nel mondo.
Thank you. It is my pleasure now to introduce Mr. Giorgi Gabedava, President of Rondine International Peace Lab, which will introduce the first of 3 videos on project developed by Rondine alumni all over the world during 2020 as a concrete response to the pandemic. Please, the floor is yours. Can you please unmute your microphone? Thank you.
Yeah. Can you hear me? Great. Thank you. First of all, I would like to greet you on behalf of Rondine International Peace Lab. I'm honored to deliver the voices of ex-students of Rondine from all over the world to you. Rondine International Peace Lab is the international network which brings together more than 200 Rondine alumni, former enemies who met and worked together on conflict transformation and resolution during our deeply transformational experience at Rondine. We do feel and live every ongoing conflict, no matter where in the world, to some point at our own responsibility. We feel the urge to act leveraging on our conflict transformation approach in every context when there are people suffering due to the absence of peace. We all have witnessed the enormous impact that the COVID pandemic is having on each and every society around the globe, demolishing the social tissue, reshaping economies, and deepening further already existing social gaps, leaving those that were already underprivileged or struggling in the position that is incomparably worse than it was before the pandemic. We want to draw yours and the attention of other international bodies to one social category in particular, one that is in a greater risk of being neglected in the national draftings of global strategic responses to the crisis caused by the pandemic. We refer to all those people, families, and communities suffering directly or indirectly from the ongoing conflicts. Those people are representing one of the most vulnerable social categories that were already multiple times marginalized. At the moment, they're facing more obstacles to their way of recovery, restoring their hope and dignity since the overall global interest have shifted towards some other short-term recovery priorities. We young leaders of peace believe that it is our common moral and civic duty to advocate, now more loudly than ever, for these groups that are, among other things, are lacking any kind of visibility and official representation. They risk to stay unseen and unheard, left alone, without even sometimes hope for a better future. Due to our fresh memory about conflicts, wars, and their devastating aftermaths that are not disappearing, not even after many years upon the peace agreements, we can truly relate, and we are even more encouraged to participate and be directly engaged in minimizing the consequences of both conflicts and pandemics. We, as the Rondine International Peace Lab members, want to invite and encourage you all to take tangible actions that will result in improving lives and restoring our faith in humanity. Some of those might be raising the alarms on local and regional levels, directing raising awareness messages to the key stakeholders and general public, and being evolved constantly, and not just in the moment of crisis, but in general. Finally, I would like to thank all the Rondine supporters, thanks to the government of Italy and all other international institutions that are supporting idea and values of Rondine, which certainly improves the lives of young people coming from conflict zones. And with that, I would like to introduce the video project implemented by our member. Thank you so much.
Ciao a tutti, mi chiamo Giannini e sono colombiana. Il nome del mio progetto è Col Fratelli, che significa col come le iniziali del mio paese e la bella parola fratelli in italiano. Il mio progetto si basa sulla creazione di un'accademia professionale per aiutare gli ex soldati e persone coinvolte nel conflitto che ha attaccato e distrutto la nostra società negli ultimi 60 anni. Con l'accordo di pace e l'inclusione di queste persone nella nostra vita quotidiana, lo scopo principale di questo progetto è quello di mostrare a loro l'altra strada, che esiste un'altra opzione in cui tutti noi possiamo adattarsi e partecipare, insegnare loro un lavoro da fare e sviluppare, creare una motivazione per una professione per crescere di più. Questo con l'aiuto di altri cittadini colombiani che non sono stati coinvolti direttamente nel conflitto, ma sono sempre alla ricerca dell'unione delle nostre due parti e dimostrano che in Colombia, anche se siamo diversi, l'unione, l'inclusione e la forza di andare avanti devono sempre prevalere. Siamo fratelli, ci sosteniamo e ci distinguiamo l'uno per l'altro. Siamo col fratelli.
A very beautiful project from Janine, a Rondine alumna from Colombia. Let's now hear a video message by Cardinal Pietro Parolin, Cardinal Secretary of State of the Holy See.
Dear President Vaccari, dear friends, I am pleased to participate in this online event organized by Rondine Cittadella della Pace, and to greet all of you while offering a few thoughts on the theme of diffusing new tensions. The post-pandemic world will need leaders of peace. We are all aware of the fact that the COVID-19 virus has revealed vulnerabilities in various sectors of our societies, and in many instances aggravated numerous social ills that sadly continue to challenge our communities. It has also placed a great strain on, and even division of, human relationships, whether between states, among communities, or within families. While this situation has produced new tensions, they should not be considered insurmountable. Rather, they are an occasion for us to become makers of peace, to revitalize our communities and families by seeking the common good and placing the good of others before our own personal desires. This applies especially to leaders who have the responsibility of promoting peace among their peoples. A leader of peace must be first a person of peace with God, with others, and in oneself, appreciating that the other is one like myself, with inviolable inherent dignity. As Pope Francis stresses, if we accept the great principle that there are rights born of our inalienable human dignity, we can rise to the challenge of envisaging a new humanity. This is the true path of peace, not the senseless and myopic strategy of sowing fear and mistrust in the face of outside threats. For a real and lasting peace will only be possible on the basis of a global ethic of solidarity and cooperation in the service of a future shaped by interdependence and shared responsibility in the whole human family. Building peace requires that each of us do our part to practice and to promote it through solidarity with others, especially those marginalized among us, and through fostering mutual understanding and social friendships with others. This is strongly encouraged by the Holy Father. The processes of change that lead to lasting peace are crafted above all by peoples. Each individual can act as an effective leaven by the way he or she lives each day. This means that everyone has a fundamental role to play in a single great creative project to write a new page of history, a page full of hope, peace, and reconciliation. There is an architecture of peace to which different institutions of society contribute, each according to its own area of expertise, but there is also an art of peace that involves us all. In these times, when many aspects of life seem fragmented and incoherent, it is all the more necessary for us to live out our call to solidarity, born of the consciousness that we are responsible for the fragility of others as we strive to build a common future. All over the world, in our communities and in our families, there is a great need for reconciliation, charity, and peace. There is also a need for peacemakers, men and women prepared to work boldly and creatively to initiate processes of healing and renewed encounter. It is my hope that this event may add to the promotion of peace a goal to which all of us are fully committed to achieve, recognizing that such an initiative requires much sacrifice on the part of each of us. Leaders of peace should be the first to make the sacrifices that foster encounter and to seek convergence on at least some issues. They should be ready to listen to other points of view and to make room for everyone. Through sacrifice and patience, they can help to create a beautiful polyhedral reality in which everyone has a place. I wish that this significant meeting, promoted by the students and former students of Rondine, may accomplish the proposed objectives along the path of communicating peace and dialogue as a response to the most urgent problems of our time and to the new conflicts presently emerging. Thank you for your attention.
Thank you. And now it's my pleasure to introduce Mr. Pietro Parolin, officer of the Italian Red Cross. Please, the floor is yours.
Good evening. First of all, let me thank Rondine for inviting the Italian Red Cross. I'm Pietro Parolin, officer operation of the Red Cross, representing this third and important meeting of the campaign Leaders for Peace, our national president, and president of the International Federation of the Red Cross and Red Crescent, Francesco Rocca, of whom I bring his greetings and his sustain with the greeting of our association. In these months of the pandemic, the Italian Red Cross was strongly committed, feeling the weight of a totally new type of emergency to manage, new and especially unsettling. For the needs of the territory, we have made available doctors, nurses. Our volunteers cover the needs of the most vulnerable, working day and night on ambulances, providing especially help to the most needy, especially to those affected by the COVID-19, providing care, shopping for basic necessities, performing tampons, while the virus was spreading fast and which was not easy to keep up. And each time we have seen sick and prostrate people entrust themselves completely to us, a boundless trust that could not find us inadequate. Here, we would like young peoples to build the future, and precisely on this, with that strength and enthusiasm that only they can show. Those in need trusted us, and we must give back humanity, listening, but especially our presence. Taking charge of person in need in every situation, humanity and listening, there are these the values that we as the Red Cross would like to revive. Therefore, if the pandemic has cleared from where we would like young people to try to rebuild, I would like to give good work to everyone and thank you from the Red Cross.
So much. And now we have a short extract of another project in Mali by Brigitte and George, Rondine alumni.
Mi chiamo Brigitte, sono maliana. Sono un'ex studentessa di Rondine, cittadina della pace.
Sono George, il project manager del progetto COVID-19 Emergency Response.
Sono laureata in diritto pubblico e in global governance, intercultural relation and peace process management all'Università di Siena, ma soprattutto ho seguito una formazione sulla gestione dei conflitti per 2 anni a Rondine, cittadina della pace in Italia. Non si nasconde a nessuno che il mondo è stato scosso e molto preso dal panico non molto tempo fa a causa della malattia di Covid-19. Noi, Rondine d'Oro del Mali, abbiamo deciso di realizzare un progetto di lotta contro il Covid-19. Vogliamo essere attori impegnati a sensibilizzare la popolazione contro la messa al bando di questa pandemia di Covid-19.
Il progetto COVID-19 Emergency Response è un progetto di Rondine Internazionale Peace Lab finanziato da United Nations Network of Young Peace Leaders. Noi, i Rondini d'Oro del Mali, ci siamo messi insieme per fare questo progetto qui a Bamako. Perché qui? Perché con la crisi del Mali i profughi si sono spostati dal centro per venire qui a Bamako e sono tutti nel centro di accoglienza e nel campi di profughi. Per questo non fanno molto attenzione al coronavirus. E perché grazie a Rondine Internazionale Peace Lab e grazie ai Rondini d'Oro del Mali abbiamo messo questo progetto qui a Bamako per poter prima aiutare queste persone a avere i materiali e i kit necessari per proteggersi del coronavirus e secondo anche parlando del coronavirus, della coesione sociale, della pace e della necessità di creare uno spazio di pace tra i tribù e i gruppi etnici che sono in conflitto. Qui siamo tornati, qui vogliamo cambiare le cose, qui vogliamo lavorare per poter cambiare e portare la pace nel cuore dei maliani. E perché abbiamo scelto di lavorare sia sul coronavirus, che è un problema per un paese che è in conflitto come il Mali, anche approfittare per mettere a disposizione la nostra conoscenza della risoluzione dei conflitti che abbiamo acquisito a Rondine alla disposizione della nostra popolazione. Grazie.
Now we hear a video message by His Holiness Bartholomew I, Ecumenical Patriarch of Constantinople.
Dear friends, the pandemic of the coronavirus COVID-19 shattered many of our convictions, revealed the limits of the titanism of the contemporary secularized man, and at the same time manifested the power and value of solidarity. We do not simply refer to the greatness of the sacrificial love of the physicians, the nurses, and the healthcare workers toward their patients. Love which transcends the human measure. We refer more broadly to the cooperation for the confrontation of the great contemporary challenges which are common and universal. We starkly know that our world is a unity. We are aware of the fact that the future of the humanity and of our planet either will be unfolded on the basis of solidarity and fraternity, or it will simply be non-existent. As it is highlighted by prominent geneticists, through the destruction of the natural ecosystems, deforestation, intensive farming, chemical contaminants, and urbanization, the danger of new pandemics and murrays grows. The dispersal of the perilous viruses is also promoted due to the globalization and the mobility of people, placing human relations in front of new challenges and responsibilities. We do not forget anything of those that we declared together with His Holiness our brother Pope Francis in our joint message on the World Day of Prayer for Creation, September 2017. The interconnection of social and ecological problems is undeniable. It is impossible to truly care for man and at the same time to destroy his house, ecos, the natural environment, especially since the deterioration of the planet weighs upon the most vulnerable of its people. The social and ecological problems affect man at the core of his existence. It is impossible for the Church to remain indifferent before these issues through the invocation of its spiritual mission. The objection that in this way the Church becomes involved in the ambiguities of the human affairs ignores the truth that Christ sends us into the world in order to give the good testimony of faith, love, and hope. Obviously, the retreat from the world and the detachment from it do not contribute to its transformation in Christ. In this sense, both the papal encyclical Fratelli Tutti and the document for the life of the world toward a social ethos of the Orthodox Church by a committee of theologians of the Ecumenical Patriarchate were published at the best possible moment. There is no excuse, no alibi can be established. The Church cannot remain silent before the threats against the human person and the integrity of creation. The categorical imperative for all of us is to put the care for our neighbor and the protection of the natural environment in practice. We have to respect always and in all things the sacredness of the human person and the very good creation of God, which is impermissible to be treated as an object for exploitation. Faith in Christ strengthens the spirit of offering toward our brother, sharpens our senses before the violations of the human rights, and empowers our fight for a peaceful world. It is certain that the commitment of our churches to fraternity and to the eco-friendly ethos strengthen more broadly our struggle for social justice and peace, for the establishment and promotion of a culture of mutual support. It also manifests the truth that Christian love is always concrete. It is addressed toward the concrete man who is in need of assistance, and at the same time it is universal. It does not know borders, moving beyond any social, political, or cultural limitation. Fraternity and solidarity are the effective vaccine and the antidote to the current social and ecological crisis. We repeat it. Fraternity and solidarity are the effective vaccine and the antidote to the current social and ecological crisis. We consider especially important the fact that the term solidarity is connected with Christian fraternity and points to the social struggles for justice and freedom. During the post-pandemic period, we are also called to manifest ourselves as exactly what we are. That is to say, genuine brethren and guardians of the creation. With these thoughts in mind, we commend this event as well as the other initiatives of the Rondine International Peace Lab, praying for a speedy overcoming of the current health crisis and implementation of the lessons that we were taught during the pandemic, in a spirit of peace, solidarity, and brotherhood, invoking upon all of you the grace and the blessing of Christ our Savior, who is always with us and for us. Merry Christmas.
A very important message. And let me welcome now Ms. Vanessa Nakate, international climate justice activist from Uganda. Please go ahead, Vanessa.
Thank you very much. I'm happy to be speaking with all of you today. My name is Vanessa Nakate and I'm a climate activist from Uganda. I started doing activism last year in the month of January by going to the streets and striking every Friday because I had realized that the climate crisis was the biggest threat that was facing our humanity, that was destroying people's lives right now. From seeing it in my very own country, where people have suffered with floods, with landslides, with droughts that have exposed them to vulnerabilities of having no access to food, of having no access to water, of children dropping out of school, of girls being forced into marriages. I started to talk about the intersections of the climate crisis and the social justice issues, the climate crisis, and gender equality, because I know that these are conversations that few people are talking about, and yet they are very important. The COVID-19 crisis exposed so much of the vulnerability of our communities, of our societies, of our countries. We saw how many people didn't even have a place to stay, how many people struggled to find something to eat, how many families had to suffer to get water to drink and to use in their homes. I think this is a moment for humanity and for people to think about the future that we want to inherit. This pandemic has showed what we can expect in the future, because we face a much bigger crisis, and that is the climate crisis that has already been destroying lives, that has already been claiming lives, that has already been ripping apart countries, families, and taking away everything that they have. I come from a continent that is affected by the climate crisis in ways that you cannot imagine. I failed to find words to use to talk about this crisis. This year in my country, the water levels of Lake Victoria rose and many people's homes were submerged, toilets were submerged, water sources were contaminated. Floods in the western part of the country, leaving many people staying in tents during a pandemic. And until now, many are still crying for help. This is a time for people to think about the future that we want to inherit, the future that is going to be left for the children, the future that is going to be left for your grandchildren. Is it going to be a future of disaster? The present is already catastrophic with all these disasters, the wildfires, the hurricanes, the cyclones. We are seeing all these things, and yet our leaders continue to fail us. They continue to refuse to listen to the science. Now is the time to build back better. Now is the time to build homes, to build communities, to build cities that are equitable, cities that are sustainable. The climate crisis is a human rights issue. We all know that it affects everything that a human being has a right to clean air, a right to a safe place to live, a right to getting access to food, a right to education, among others. So let us advocate and speak up for change for our environment, because this is the greatest threat that is facing humanity right now. It is interconnected with every other issue, because without climate justice, we won't be able to eradicate poverty in our communities. Without climate justice, we won't be able to achieve zero hunger in many countries. Without climate justice, we won't be able to have peace in our communities. There won't be peace building, because the depletion of resources is causing conflicts in communities, as many are fighting and struggling to have access and ownership of these resources. Without climate justice, we will not have gender equality. We clearly see that women and girls are disproportionately affected by the climate crisis. They have to do double of the work when everything is lost. They are the ones who are forced into marriages because their families can't take care of many children anymore. They are the ones who are left to die the most in the case of a crisis. In my community, they do not accept girls to climb trees, and yet when a flood occurs, that is the first way of trying to save yourself. So everything is interconnected. Everything that pertains to our life can only be possible if we get climate justice. Let us fight for the protection of our homes. Let us fight for the protection of our ecosystems, for the protection of our oceans, because those are our life support systems. And without the life support systems, then there is nothing we can do on this planet. There is no music on a dead planet. There is no money on a dead planet. There is no family on a dead planet. So let us think about the intersection of all these things and how much the climate crisis is the greatest threat that is facing our lives right now. It is the greatest threat to human rights right now. And if our leaders don't do anything about this, then we are going to continue to suffer. However, we may be facing the same storm, but sadly, we are in different boats. There are communities that are experiencing the worst of this crisis right now. There are communities whose boats are sinking deeper, whose boats are burning faster because of this crisis. So as we recover from the COVID-19 pandemic, let us not forget the much bigger crisis that is threatening our lives, and that is climate change. We all have a part to play. So we should all be part of this change that we want. We should all be part of the transformation. Do something. Do not be silent at a time when your voice is really needed. If you can, go to the protests. If you can, use your resources. Vote the right leaders. Because this is for the people and the planet. All we want is a future where the people can smile, where the planet can smile, a future that is equitable, healthy, clean, and sustainable for all of us. And I know that we can do it. If we add up millions of actions together, we will be able to transform this world. So be part of the transformation. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much for your contribution to today's discussion. And please now follow the presentation of the third project, which is in Bosnia and Herzegovina by Sara, Rondine alumna.
What is your favorite sound? Is it the humming of the birds? Is it the leaves dancing in the wind? Do you ever think to yourself how grateful you are to be able to wake up every morning and to listen to your favorite music or your favorite song? Oh wait, you cannot hear me? Well, unfortunately, not everyone is that lucky. In Bosnia and Herzegovina, according to statistics, there are 70,000 people with hearing difficulty. But it is not the only difficulty they have. Deaf people in my country are discriminated and marginalized in the society. Human rights are everyone's rights, and everyone has a right to work. That is why I thought of a project that is called Forte Silenzio, which means loud silence. Hi, my name is Sara Dukic, and I come from Bosnia and Herzegovina. Welcome to Sarajevo. I am a Bachelor of Law and I have a Master degree in Political Science. For the past 2 years, I have been a member of an international organization, Rondine, which works on conflict transformation, human rights, and peace building, hence the passion for human rights. Also, they help me to understand different nations, cultures, and to be more empathic to those who are forgotten and discriminated. The project itself is based on 3 pillars of sustainability. More exact, economic, social, and environmental, because I think that it is and should be our future. Forte Silenzio is the name of an eco-sustainable built coffee house, where the waiters will be people with hearing difficulties and without. The customers will be able to make their orders in sign language, which they will have the opportunity to learn from the tablet on every table through an application which we will create. The goal is the integration of people with hearing difficulties and to eliminate prejudice and discrimination, as well as providing human rights to those who we forgot.
Very important project as well. I now give the floor to Mr. Otimio Levale, Executive Director and co-founder of the Youth Hub Africa from Nigeria. Thank you.
Thank you very much, and it's my pleasure to join this very interesting occasion today. I would like to thank the organizers, Rondine, for this invitation. I'm going to speak to the issues of the awakening we are seeing on the African continent, and that's the very beautiful and interesting awakening of women power that is rising all across the continent. I'm very pleased and happy to see that my colleague Vanessa Nakate, who we are so very proud of on the African continent, who has been using our voice to champion the issues of climate change on the continent, speak just before I speak to this issue. And we're seeing a number of other young women on the continent leading campaigns and other issues across all Africa. In Sudan, we have seen Allah Salah, who is part of a group of young women who led protests and strikes against the very repressive Sudanese government, and who are leading the fight for change in Sudan. In Namibia, we've seen the Shut It All Down movement, which is led by young women campaigning and asking government to put an end to gender-based violence in their community and in their country. In South Africa, in the last 2 years, we've seen the Fees Must Fall campaign, which is led by Student Representative Council, many of them young women, asking the government to stop the increase in school fees, which is taking higher education away from the reach of the middle class and the poor in that country. In Nigeria, where I come from, we have seen in the last couple of months the End SARS campaign, also led by young women, calling government to put an end to police brutality, specifically targeting young people, young boys and vulnerable women in our society. In Africa, this awakening is something that we're so proud of, that young women are rising up and taking up the challenge. And over the years, women have been speaking, but they are not being listened to. But with the advent of social media, with organizing, with digital tools, young women on the African continent are now being able to have their voice being heard and continue to champion peace and development in our communities. And we are so proud of that. In my reflection for 2021, I believe that we'll see many more of this. We would see more inspiring young women. And we think that it's important for investments to be channeled towards ensuring that more young women gain access to education and opportunities to have platforms for development. And I think this is what I have seen in the spirit of Rondine and in the alumni that you have shown from all over the world. And that investment in women is very critical, and it's something that I'd like Rondine and all partners to continue to do so. I've seen from your campaigns in Colombia and in Mali, which has exemplified the specific focus and investment in women who have returned to their communities and continue to champion growth and development and to campaign for a peaceful and prosperous world. Finally, I must say also that the solidarity and fraternity that we expect from the world in the post-COVID campaign is something that we need to reflect and think on. COVID and coronavirus has affected the entire world, but in this time where everybody needs to sit in their houses and attend meetings online, we need to bring back the solidarity of the entire world to ensure that all the entire world is free from COVID as we begin to see advances in technology towards the vaccines that have been released in the world. And for global prosperity and peace to continue, the world needs to learn to share and support one another. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much. And now, please, let's hear together a group performance by current Rondine Award House students live from Rondine.
I'm a person, just like you. I'm an age-long history of discrimination. I'm the history of rejection of who I am and my person. My words are always rejected. Wrong is not who I am. My name is my own. I repeat, my own. I am my name.
I'm a person, just like you. My color doesn't define me. My race or ethnicity doesn't define me. Let me be. Let me speak. I am the immigrant holding my own and waiting for light at the end of the tunnel. But in the end, nothing happens. I am reminded that I don't belong. Why is the system harsh to me?
I am a person, just like you. You used my weakness against me. You use what I do wrong to take away what I did right. You say you are giving me the rights. You are giving me a space to be. Yet, you are taking everything away. You say you are giving me the solution when you are making my problem.
I'm a person just like you. I'm the person who fears to express myself out of the fear of being rejected or being put in a box. I'm that person who is seen as faulty or absurd because of how I choose to love.
I am a person, just like you. The system is for the people and by the people. But is it really for the people? They tried. You tried. You forgot my human rights. Please see me like you. You turn away when you see the injustice. You close your eyes when you rip away my roots.
I'm a person, just like you. When you live in fear, when you are forced not to express yourself, when you feel that you love, but you can't be loved. But I still have hope and don't know where it takes me.
I'm a person, just like you. We're asking you to remember your youth. What do your words from your youth means to you now? Did they find action? I say I am a human and I chose to be here. We say we are humans and we have no enemy.
We believe in humanity. We say we are humans and we have chosen empathy. We have chosen to learn and to do more than we can. We say we are humans and each of us is responsible for the planet in our every manifestation.
We are asking you to close your eyes. What do human rights mean to you when you are alone?
Very, very powerful. Very powerful. Thank you. Now, let me give back the floor to Simona De Martino from the Italian mission of Italy to the United Nations for her final remarks on behalf of Ambassador Mariangela Zappia. Thank you.
Thank you, Valeria, and yes, on behalf of Ambassador Zappia, who unfortunately had to leave earlier, I would like to thank President Franco Vaccari and all the speakers for their contributions to our collective reflection on this important day. I was very impressed by the theatrical performance by Rondine students. It was really, as Valeria said, really, very powerful in conveying some important messages. I think we have now a lot of food for thoughts on so many issues, and it's so important that many of these contributions came from young people. As Minister Di Maio stated, yesterday we celebrated the 5th anniversary of the Youth, Peace and Security Agenda at the UN, and we are engaged in ensuring its full implementation. As many speakers pointed out, this pandemic has been having a very serious impact on human rights, including women's rights, increasing discrimination and violence, unfortunately. As Rondine teaches, the solution can only be based on dialogue, mutual respect, and human relations. Young people can teach us a lot in this regard, and intergenerational dialogue is of the essence. I thank you.
Thank you, Simona. And now I give the floor back to President Vaccari for his final remark. Thank you.
Grazie Valeria, grazie, mi ha fatto piacere sentire anche Simona tantissimo, grazie. E a tutti i partecipanti. È la conferma che è come se oggi avessimo fatto un abbraccio con i giovani per dare loro coraggio e continuare nella strada del dialogo e della pace che parte dalle proprie relazioni e quindi dà concretezza e credibilità alla propria azione. Dentro una relazione c'è un mondo. Pensiamo che oggi usciamo ancora più rafforzati in questa convinzione e nella convinzione che se anche quest'anno Rondine non è andata alle Nazioni Unite, però quindi non è andata in uno dei luoghi che è il centro del mondo, possiamo dire che ahimè la vicenda del coronavirus è passata da Rondine. Quindi, come dire, la storia passa da tutti noi. Nel mondo globale centro e periferia si alternano. Oggi pensiamo di aver incontrato un punto della riflessione globale. Grazie veramente a tutti e come sempre un grande grazie agli studenti di Rondine che poi oggi ci hanno dato un messaggio con il linguaggio dell'arte che è particolarmente interessante.
So just a quick word to thank everyone. Unfortunately, we couldn't be at the UN today, but definitely this was an historic moment for the history of Rondine. It was a moment to meet each other and literally a moment for us to share all of our thoughts in this difficult time. I would also like to thank all of the speakers and today's participants and also Rondine students who really sent a powerful message through the language of art and theater. Thank you very much.
Thank you. And before concluding today's event, I want first to thank Rondine for inviting me to moderate this important discussion. I want to thank each one of the participants, and I want to thank all the students and alumni of Rondine for their contribution to this discussion, which aimed to reflect on what will be needed by future leaders to heal the deep relational and human wound left by the pandemic, as well as the health and socioeconomic wounds. And as Greta Thunberg showed us today, it is young people who bring the world's emergencies to the attention of the head of state. And now let's hear a final Leader for Peace appeal from Alex, Georgian, and Sharizan Abzak, Rondine World House student. Thank you so much, everyone, and thank you again, Rondine, for this discussion. Thank you.
Human rights are one of the crucial parts of each individual, and it protects, empowers us. However, does each person have rights to protect them? Does each person have food and medicine to be healthy? What is equality and equity? We are living in a world where people are waking up with the thoughts of how to feed the family or how to treat medical needs. A lot has been changed, but there is more to go. Human rights are basic rights, which must be protected for each citizen. If there is absence of the discrimination, starving, medical insecurity, conflict, means that we are happy. But does it apply for all the people all around the world? Most probably no. So our goal is to fight for the basic human rights for all. I'm in Rondine for 2 years approximately, and this experience changed my life totally. It gave me the possibility to step back and view different perspectives, for which I'm grateful, thankful, and it made me realize one thing, that we need more youth leaders who will build a better day. Therefore, we stand here launching the 3rd year of the campaign Leaders for Peace, which has already been supported by Italy, Costa Rica, the European Economic and Social Committee, by mayors and citizens. Currently, we are at the vital point where we are able to see the urgent need for more young peace leaders who will build a more peaceful and altruistic world. We are already living in a better world than what it was before. However, each day is a challenge. And each day we need to take care of each other and guide our lives with understanding, realizing that much more needs to be done in order each person to enjoy basic human rights. We can have a better, more altruistic world.
Today we asked you and ourselves and everyone who heard and listened to us, what do human rights mean to you when you're alone? We ask because we believe that respecting and application of human rights begin with how an individual respects the world on his own. A person begins with a person. That is what our experience in Rondine teaches us. A person begins with changes. Do you need to be part of many in order to believe in human rights? Or you can start by yourself and give others your honest values. We are a group of young people with young ideas, but with old fears. We have grown up with war, which has taken root in our homes. But each of us is in search of a seed that will give roots to new islands of life. We are here. Together we found each other here. Is it courage or a weakness? Is it an escape or a search? Is it enemy or a friend? Inside of the word together, we believe that we can give to others our honest values. My name is Sherizan.
My name is Alexandra.
We are friends.
Thank you, one and each of you. And I would like to conclude with the words of Martin Luther King Jr., who said, "The ultimate measure of a man is not where he stands in moments of comfort, but where he stands at times of challenge and controversy." Thank you.
Thank you.